One of the pillars of your FIRE journey is making sure you have enough to buffer in case something goes wrong. This buffer is also known as an emergency fund and is generally a good idea to have, but is particularly important for those on the journey to financial independence. This is because the journey involves two fundamental issues. First is having a lifestyle whereby your expenditure is kept low. And secondly, the savings you make is put towards something which will grow fast, typically stock market investments. As a result, your risks are much higher. If an unexpected large expense hits you, then you most likely won't have the cash to pay for it. This is because with FIRE, the idea is to keep the least cash possible as cash loses value over time due to inflation. We want to grow wealth, not lose wealth over time. With FIRE, it also means that if there were an economic downturn, your investments are also likely to fall, as has been the case with all major recessions. In those situations, the last thing you want to do is sell off your investment at a massive loss of value. For these reasons, it's important to have an emergency fund or reserve, whichever you want to call it. The purpose of a reserve is quite obvious and all around us. Banks have reserves, businesses have reserves, and even people carry energy reserves in the form of body fat. Yep, that's right, winter's coming. Reserve is there to protect against tough times. Okay, I'm off on a tangent, so let's get back to the emergency fund topic. The key aspect of an emergency fund is that it must be accessible whenever and wherever needed. In other words, it must be liquid. The most liquid asset is cash, but as mentioned earlier, inflation will eat away your cash, which means that you will need to top up that emergency fund every year to keep it in line with your requirements. Ideally, you'd like your emergency fund to keep its value at the very least, or even better, to grow over time. Bonds have traditionally been a safer investment than stocks, but they are still subject to market fluctuations and therefore may also fall during a recession, although to a lesser extent. And also the yield rate on bonds are not really great. Furthermore, bonds are not as liquid as cash. Let's say there's an urgent matter that develops over the weekend, you may need to withdraw a substantial amount of cash. With markets closed, you can't sell your bonds, and even if you did, it would take a few days to have the cash in your bank account, as your order will have to be cleared as well as the withdrawal has to be authorized by the investment platform. So while bonds may be a safer store of money, it's not really fit for purpose. This leads us to the savings account. Savings accounts have traditionally been a good place where you can keep your reserve as they pay interest over time, which in usual times would offset inflation. However, with record low interest rates, most savings accounts currently pay less than the average rate of inflation of 2%. And I'm talking really low, like 0.01%. And for those who do offer interest rate higher than 2%, there are often restrictions on how you can withdraw your money or how often you can withdraw your money. It's usually locked for a minimum period, like a bond, or perhaps you have to give advance notice for withdrawals. If you do shop around, however, you can find really good choices. For example, last week I found Natwest was offering a savings account with 3% interest rate. During these times, this seems too good to be true, and it kind of is. Here's the limitation. So you only get 3% on the first £1,000 deposit, and any amounts above that you get 0.01%. So you cannot also deposit £1,000 in one go, but you can only save up £50 at a time, per month that is. And at this rate, it would take someone 20 months to reach £1,000. So if patience isn't your strong suit, then this probably isn't for you. Also, the Royal Bank of Scotland offers the same deal and it's worth checking out. See how many of those high interest savings accounts you can find, and do make the most of them. In the current economic climate, a 3% interest rate is quite rare, but you can find accounts with 1.5% rates more easily. Now that may not be enough to completely offset inflation, but at least it will reduce its negative impact. Hopefully interest rates will rise as inflation is running a bit hot, and the central banks should hopefully step in at some point. Anyway, I also wanted to point out how I came across these offers, basically through the Money Saving Expert website, and I highly recommend that you get onto their mailing list for offers and discounts. They really do a good job. I'll put the links in the description, but as a disclaimer, I am in no way affiliated with them. If you found any great tips, please feel free to share them in the comments below. And that's it from me this week. It's a bit shorter than usual, but with a sweet deal at the end. Thank you for watching and see you next time.